AST Spacemobile had another phenomenal week this week. Shares were up 22%, and this time there was actually a lot of really good news behind phones that may actually be using their product in the near future. Apple announced upgrades to iOS 18, and that is partially going to include more ability to send texts and other information via satellite. Now, that's going to ultimately going to depend on satellite services being available from your telecom provider. But Verizon and AT&T have signed deals with AST Spacemobile, so this may happen much quicker than a lot of people expect. In fact, it may be as soon as this fall. So I'm going to get to exactly what we learned this week, what sort of the future projections might look like. Right now, we don't know a lot about the financials of any of these deals, but at least from a strategic and a product perspective, it looks like the company is heading in the right direction. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content, and thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. Let's look at the market's reaction first. This is a look at AST Spacemobile stock over the past week. You can see up 22%, now a $2.6 billion market cap. Over the course of the year, shares are up 111%. So just a phenomenal run, up 307% even just over the past month. So what exactly did we learn this week? The biggest thing from the iOS 18 preview is this piece right here. And they talked about this briefly. Stay connected when you're without Wi-Fi or cellular. And the details here are that cellular capabilities on iPhone 14 or later, you can stay connected with friends and family with iMessage or SMS. So you can send text messages without cellular or Wi-Fi service. You will also be able to use features like sending and receiving. So it's not just going to be text, it's going to be emojis and tapbacks as well. So this is going to be included on hundreds of millions of devices that are already out in the field. So iPhone 14 or later, that's going to be a vast majority of the iPhones that are out there right now. Now, Engadget had an article here that just talks about this is going to be free for now. Apple announced their emergency SOS product with the iPhone 14 lineup, so that kind of laid the groundwork for this. They say that the connection is going to be similar to before. You'll be told to what direction to point your iPhone, as well as suggestions to avoid obstructions. And once you're linked, an indicator in the dynamic island shows a green mark. So basically, it will tell you if you have a good connection to a satellite. You also won't be able to receive messages. You can just send messages. So this is, for now, going to be just the kind of capability that's going to be used primarily in emergency situations. But this is why these recent announcements are so important for AST Spacemobile. You can see this one from Verizon was the announcement of a $100 million investment. $65 million of that was commercial prepayments. So prepayments for future use of commercial products. So it looks like this is something that they're probably going to roll out in the near future. And then another $35 million in convertible notes. You also had an agreement with AT&T, also for commercial agreements in the future. So things appear to be moving in the right direction. Now you need to get satellites into orbit. That's expected to happen in July or August when 5 Block 1 satellites are going to go to Cape Canaveral. The first 5 satellites are going to allow non-continuous service in the United States with 5,600 plus cells in premium low-band spectrum. So expect there to be more satellites going up in the near future, especially after the higher stock price is going to make it a little bit easier to raise capital. And these commercial agreements are moving the company in the right direction as well. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. But this is where the hard part begins for investors. I mentioned earlier that the market cap for AST Spacemobile, at least according to Google Finance, $2.63 billion. But look at the company's finances. This is a chart from FinChat that shows total revenue. This is on a trailing 12-month basis, goes back to June 2021. Total revenue is basically non-existent. And that means that the company is losing money on the order of about $90 to $100 million on an annualized basis. So that's obviously not sustainable. So you need to get these satellites into orbit. You need to get these commercial operations going. But what is the upside? And that's what we just simply don't know right now. What sort of return on capital invested we're going to have from AST Spacemobile. I think it is absolutely encouraging that a company like Apple and all of the products that they're going to have in the market are going to be accessing this kind of technology. We don't know exactly if they're going to be using these satellites, different satellites, But it definitely seems that we're moving in the direction of satellites being much more important to traditional cell phones or smartphones. What we haven't seen is if that's going to be a huge financial impact for this company or for anybody else. The other thing to keep in mind is that there's nothing necessarily proprietary about these satellites or about a satellite network in general. We have seen this with the telecom companies over the last few decades. It's actually been very difficult to be a telecom company because you are constantly putting more assets into the ground as you're upgrading networks year after year after year. We've seen this from AT&T and Verizon over the last couple of years with building out their 5G networks, spending tens of billions of dollars, not only on the spectrum itself, but also building out the networks and putting the equipment in place that actually makes the networks work. That has not led to very strong returns for investors. So just because people are using a network and that the network is really good doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be financial gains for investors. And I think this is the thing that we need to keep in mind with AST Spacemobile. This is what's ultimately keeping me out of the stock right now, is that we just simply don't know what the upside is. There's no revenue right now coming into the company. It's very positive that there's commercial agreements in place. It seems like we're moving in the direction that we're going to have more and more people connecting to satellites via smartphones that they have in their pocket. Probably going to increase those use cases as well. Apple is usually the kind of company that's going to be behind the times a little bit. So those SOS features, now we're moving to text messages if that's needed, and in the small number of locations that it will be needed. What we haven't gotten to is the point where you're actually going to be using this on a day-to-day basis. So what is that ultimately going to look like? Are we going to replace cell phone towers with satellite dishes? Probably not right now, but definitely something that we could look for in the future, especially from something like broadband, in more rural areas. I think that's the kind of thing that Starlink is doing, so you could add more value that way. So a lot of different growth potential options, but we have no idea what the return on invested capital is for a company like AST Spacemobile. So right now the stock is driven by hype. It's very understandable, very good returns so far in 2024. And I like the momentum that the business has gotten from signing all these agreements. But just a quick warning that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be profitable and that this run is going to continue in the future, because somebody else may come along and see this as an attractive opportunity and launch their own satellites. So something to think about. But let me know what you think about AST Spacemobile in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.